I'd like to call this special meeting to order. Trustee Johnson is out of town and attending via video conference. A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Calling the roll, Steve.
Sure.
Brian.
Present.
Vladimir.
Here.
Shelley. Here. And I am here also. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any board member want to provide any comment on the agenda? Not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Steve, do you,
Agree. Yes.
yes. Brian?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Shelley? Yes. And I am a yes also. 0. On to action discussion items. EMC research parcel tax survey results. I know.
Want to welcome Jessica from EMC Research, and we have Jeremy and Eric here from Team Civics. As requested, they did a second round of polling, so Jessica's here to talk about the results of the polling, and then hear from Jeremy and Eric as well. Here are two results of the tracking survey of Lakewood voters for 2022 districts. Review methodology for the polls is survey of Lakewood voters, and we can also Lakewood. Late last month using base mode use seeing between and the baseline that was conducted by institutions. You see a lot of tracking to the baseline. You see a little bit of change when it comes to the economic look of voters into the slightly less. Because we have one trustee who's on video. That's actually not a mic, but that was the mic. So that, when it comes to support, you don't see a dramatic difference to the base. You see a slight softening in support. Show you the details. Right there, the 2/3 threshold or essential person measure. We continue to see that voters' priorities align well with those of the district. And these are some other importance of the main. However, we also see that support for the personal survey does fluctuate. Thinking of the future, we expect conditions to be 6 months from now. Would you say better, worse, same? And so back in March, 26% said better, 34% said the same, and 38% said worse. We now see that worse number down to 28%. So season, so we don't see a dramatic are seeing to historical results, not the previous sentiment about having confidence in a little bit. Few other questions asked and will really lead to would you say that the elementary and high school great need for money, some need, little need, and no real. And what you see on this chart is a lot of consistency time results compared to March with 80%, now the great need 39%, need 18%. Still these divided. On the overall district grade, we asked voters to grade the district as a teacher might grade a student, giving a grade of A, B, C, D, or an F to the quality of the district. June survey results are 8% A, 42% B, and as we look at this chart, we really show the over time, overwhelming of the grades in schools. And when we ask voters to grade the districts in these areas, we also see consistent and very good grades over time for the job that teachers are doing. A little bit of softening in consistency on this round, but the grades for the job teachers are doing for the quality of buildings and grounds and consistent results compared to March. Student outcomes, achievement, and test scores, where we continue to do very good grades and just please positive. We also ask questions and ask these over time to gauge tax attitudes among voters. We ask if you agree or disagree. I would never vote tax raised or used for. And again, you can see how consistent these are in this committee, especially compared to the March survey. I somewhat agree, at least somewhat agree with that statement, but the majority disagree. So showing community, and if you agree or disagree, maintaining the quality of our schools should be a top priority, even if it means raising taxes. We continue to see most grade voters and somewhat agree with that statement as far as the slight softening on the intensity of that agreement question. So when it comes to potential tax, we have survey and here the results of the survey in March on the left hand side, the results of in June. As you can see back in March, we saw 71% to 68% were initially yes, another 3% which way do we lean? They lean toward yes, so the total was running 71%. We now see initial support at 65%, 2%. We also presented short messages to understand would support this measure be in a positive environment, voters understand. So we offer a short statement on potential benefits, highlighting the district's ability to continue attracting and retaining high-quality teachers for the districts. Highlight those benefits. I'm sure you see a slight increase in support from 67% to yes to 69% in the survey. And then we offer looking at what the measure might say. Also, the point might emphasize now it's time for this measure. This measure has the expiration date. These are already due by those reasons. Because if you voters do position, please. So that's. Asked the question. Yes, we asked why we approve the measure, and those who said they would vote no, why would you reject the measure? So as you can see on the left hand side, primary reasons for supporting the measure really do align with your values. Only education is important, and it's important to pay teachers appropriately, and we maintain values in the community. So these are some of the reasons offered for supporting this petition. Those who know why, and many of the responses were around general opposition to taxes. There were some general negative sentiments for state management funds. We also hear some about the where we just wanted to see on the slide. And you see consistency in the overall support for users community.
Jessica, and nice to see you all again. So I just wanted to quickly talk about our analysis of these proposals and what we think they mean in terms of next steps and recommendations for what sort of first section role you might place in the ballot. And then wanted to just quickly review the timeline where we've been thus far and where we need to get in order to hit the application deadline August 11th to place in the ballots. So first and foremost, yes, there is softening in support for a first section rule, but I think overall, these numbers are positive. When we look at all the contextual questions that Jessica ran through at the beginning of the presentation, they are incredibly consistent. Voters recognize the value of your local schools here. They value how you invest in your students' education, and they overall improve outcomes. So I do think, despite that softening in support, it's our recommendation that our section rule is feasible this fall, and that we should keep marching forward with this measure. That being said, due to feedback that we've received both anecdotally through informational outreach and public education done by the district, and from the softening we see in those support numbers, we would recommend that you, the district and board, consider adding a sunset to your proposed measure. It's the ultimate accountability mechanism for voters. They would feel, from our experience and from this research, more comfortable supporting the measure with expiration date on it. And then finally, as I mentioned at the top, voters are really supportive of how you execute this program. So we're really not recommending any wholesale changes to the overall structure of the measure or the programs it supports. Again, voters really recognize the value that it places in the schools and the community at large. And so we're not seeing anything in these numbers that would tell us we need a big about shift on that side. In terms of timeline, we rated you all through this slide in April. We've made some progress since then. We've now completed the feasibility phase of the action rule process and done a good job of building awareness within the community. And now we are moving forward to phase 3, the actual development. So, as I mentioned, our deadline to qualify for November is August 11th. So pretty quick here. So we are targeting an August 7th board adoption date. At that meeting, we will come back to you all with a resolution that calls the elections November, includes the 75-word ballot question. What's next to measure with community provisions, tax rate implications, and other language legally required. So with that, I think either Jessica or I are happy to answer any questions. It's numbers.
Thank you. Does anybody have any clarifying questions? Yes, Shelley.
I guess for Jessica, for question 5, we would ask them, does the district need money? Did you ask them what they're for? Or is it just kind of an open-ended, in general, does the district need money?
It's a very general question. The reason why we ask it that generally is so we can track numbers over time, regardless of the circumstances. It helps us understand any potential fluctuations in this perception. So you can see on this chart, higher CFD, and when they went down to 16.
Do you think you could widen it? Is that what you're-
Yeah, I do think so. How we see this schools right now, a lot of things like as they do now, they might not see immediate.
The numbers I remember changed in 2016. So. Oh my God. Let me research this one. Any other questions? Lennon.
Well, this guy again. Can you say a little bit about, the people that you managed to reach in your telephone survey? And the reason I ask is because I've heard that it's just increasingly hard to get people to answer the phone. I don't know the number, I just curious about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is getting more and more difficult for holders to get more and more requests to do survey, but to answer their phone or anything to weigh in on this issue, that issue. That's why industry is really we used to do exclusively telephone interviewing to get likely voters involved in this. You can see this year we survey things have shifted dramatically now in order to get sample. We're reaching out in multiple ways, writing taxes. So what we're trying to do is make this opportunity to reach into the program and be able to get it is getting more challenging. So we did manage to get.
You determine the representative sample because you look at the voting record that you track.
Yes, we know the demographics of the likely voter.
No.
Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, that is more than anything else. The difference is that November 15th poll that she was just mentioning was phone. So when you're on the phone, you don't have a don't know option. If you're taking a survey, don't know is one of your top options. So I think, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, again, we've seen those don't knows shrink because it is presented to them in a list of answers. And when it's presented that way, they are less likely to want to advertise. Whereas when you're on the phone, you just say, I don't know, right? It's your good reaction, right? So probably last technology.
It's actually. We don't usually have a lot of option. We just do the survey online. They can see the question if they really can answer it. But it's more substance of response they're getting now. So they don't know one more stream. One item. So getting guesses. But I don't want to just leave things based on something that is funny, because I think we want to see these responses really based on students and what is the big was played there.
Then I would add, it's almost encouraging that, yes, everything on the C through F grew, but not to the same extent they did on the economy question, which I think in other communities, we would see a more comparable shift, right? Because they can't rate how the district is doing specifically, they really tie it to overall economic sentiment. And we saw a much more drastic shift on the economy.
So when you look at the vote motivations after elections, what concerns me is that has been number 2 reason for not voting for the person. But are you saying that
It's
that's something we need to address?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say it's not something we got this. It's something that it's. I'll just understand. Really. With that concern. It really is important to us to understand that there are the state, the state, the citizens who are saying those are the things they need to know. I think about this.
I couldn't agree more. And there's a percentage of the electorate who will not support a tax increase regardless of what it funds and purpose. Okay, so I think part of that chunk of the electorate is being shown. Right? So I think that's very solid. Just the flip side of that, there's a portion of the electorate who are almost.
Great. Ryan, do you have any clarifying questions?
I don't. I can't really follow any of the discussion, but I don't have any questions at the moment.
The one thing I do recommend when Shelley and I had an issue when we were at home, when we're all talking, make sure we're talking to the owls, like face mouth towards the owls, and loudly. Does that help? That I'm talking to the owls, Brian?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly right now.
All right, so that's the method we'll need to use in order for him to participate and hear. All right, now I guess I don't have any more questions. I've I had similar, questions to the rest of them and you answered them. So now it's on to, board discussion on, next step and direction as to what we're doing, because we do have another board meeting starting for August, to consider putting this on the ballot. So we really need to start looking towards that, next step. Does anybody want to start that discussion? Or any questions or concerns?
I can weigh in on one topic. I was surprised you're not gonna hear me, Brian, no matter what I say. I was surprised we were tracking or floating this idea that it didn't sunset, but it was a parcel tax that would just be added to the agenda. And I can see why that would not work well. So the idea of adding sunsetting to the language makes a lot of sense to me. I'd actually look for that no matter how we approach this. And so moving forward, if we could put that together and or agree to put that into the discussion, I'd appreciate that. That was a big one, because as Sandra briefed me quickly prior to this, what was going on, that surprised me that we had gone down that path. So plus I think it gives the board's flexibility in the future, because community flexibility in the future, new for us, but also gives the board's flexibility in the future to actually move forward with what they need in funding. And so it's that old gap analysis. That's what that was. So,
Okay. Vladimir.
If you look at the voter motivations, no, after hearing what's being said there, and you go down the list, there are proposed tax increases, not much we can do with that. Mismanagement of funds, that's I believe it's a perception issue. We need to address that. General negative, again, that's a little bit of a perception issue, and that has to be addressed over time. But the next two items, no expiration date and need more information, is something that we can address right away.
Yeah.
And so about the expiration date, with Steve's suggestion there, let's put an expiration date on it. And need more information. It'd be nice to know what kind of information was needed, because it's hard to get more information if you don't know what's there. And my personal feeling is that compared to other councils and other boards, we are probably more transparent than other places. And I point, for instance, to the marvelous budget documents that are produced by none other than Eric. And it contains a wealth of information. So the information is out there. The question is, how do we get it to people so that they understand why it is that we're looking for a parcel tax? My view.
All right, Shelley.
I just want to make a comment, because I agree. If we were to add the expiration date that will help with voter confidence, then I'm all for it, because it's more important to me that we get the parcel tax passed. But the comment that I wanted to make is, I'm looking at general positive is 4% versus general negative, which is 8%. It kind of makes me feel good, because it feels like our electorate can very specifically say what's so great about the school district and why they support it, as opposed to this general feeling of negativity. So that actually makes me feel very good.
So, Brian, do you have any comments or suggestions, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm a little concerned. I was happy to see us proposing to make the parcel tax permanent, because I was looking back over the history, and we've basically gone to the voters for a parcel tax every 7 or 8 years since 1989, since it was first created. And so the first 2 increases were to the permanent tax, and then we did the temporary in 2011 and the renewal of that in 2016. And it seems to me that sort of the sticker price weighs heavily, I think, when low information voters go to the polls. And so I'm concerned that if we make this tax expire, say in 8 years, and we keep the automatic increases, then in 8 years, the board is going to be going, to maintain the status quo, the board's going to be going back in front of the voters asking for more than $400. And I'm a little concerned about that fact, right? I think that in this case, really all of the increases all along have been funding more or less the status quo. And so I'm concerned that we're just sort of building up a bigger and bigger cliff that gets approached each time.
But in this
So that's-
case, in this case, with the inflationary increases, it is likely when we go back for it, that number will be what we were at that time, and still probably asking for inflationary increases, so it won't actually be a sticker shock.
I think it will be sticker shock. I think people don't pay attention to this number unless it's on the ballot, frankly.
Then
I think there's-
that's for us. I think moving forward, if that is a concern, I would say that we need to spend a better job of advertising where it's at. So that they're aware of how we're spending and why we're spending. And maybe I think it's in the tome that gets published, but I think maybe we have to spend some time explaining that or highlighting. In particular, where this money goes toward, or what it goes towards and why we need it. The thing that I always bump into when I'm talking to folks about what happened in our salaries, and as we're explaining, oh, Los Altos, oh, you're well funded. It's like, no, we're not. Actually, we're actually struggling to compete for teacher salaries. And people look at me like I'm doing drugs again, but it's not.
Again.
But you know, it's.
Then we had it again.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But I think it's back to an ongoing narrative about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think I know I do, and I think what we need to maybe do better at is the ongoing why we are doing this and how that works. And I think for a while there, the LAF did this great job of annually raising money. I think what we need to maybe do is a little more of that sort of pulsing outside of their cycle, but a little more pulsing of what we're doing and why we're doing it, to keep people informed as to why this has to be done.
Yeah.
Because I think we're really good at crafting the story when we need it, but I think we need to be crafting that story continually. Yeah.
Could even be so much as not that we have CACF, right? And they are the body that looks at how we're spending the parcel tax. And they do a report card every year. And it could be so much that the card goes out, but we also then push it to the newspaper and say, hey, this is what the parcel tax is this year. It's a number and this is how we're doing, but like making it a big deal. Every year, while we are transparent, where we do it, we have it out there, and in fact, it is a mailer that goes to every household.
Yeah.
It could be more making a big deal of it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's back to coming back in and a little more, right, back to Vladimir's point, where we are transparent, but I think it's taking another step with it.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to take the information that's put in front of you in a bunch of different ways, so you can't ignore it. But I do hear the concern, because I know that if we look historically, we've juggled with amounts and what's passable and what's not. And, I understand what Brian's concern is, but I also think we already have one permanent. I think the other one has to be given some flexibility, so the voters can come back in and say yes or no. And then we would have to cope with the outcome of that, because we aren't explaining well enough.
Yes, Vladimir.
I have a question for Brian. Are you suggesting that we should not have an inflation adjustment?
I'm suggesting that if I was asked to give up either the inflation adjustment or the sunsetting, I would give up, or the permanency, I would give up the inflation adjustment instead of the permanency. But it sounds like I'm on an island there, so I won't belabor it.
Yeah, I think the concern from some of the feedback we've been getting, word of mouth anecdotally, has been more the sunsetting and not the inflationary increase. Because making it permanent would require a version of a recall of the tax. I think people see that as hard to overcome. And they seem to understand the inflationary increase more. And I think we can overcome more concerns like we said, Steve and I have said. but I understand what you're saying, but the sticker price will be there and continue to increase, but we'll publicize it. Throw spaghetti at a wall, as I like to do. And so, I haven't spoken up other than to respond. And so while I did really not want to sunset this, I am willing to do that, because I do believe we need this parcel tax. And based on the information we've been getting, related to the polling, I do believe, that we should do it. Also, I, want to continue, down the path of having inflationary increases, so that we don't get into the spot we're in right now at the end of this last parcel tax, where we had such big inflation, and we were scraping together or putting our budget to its very limits for our staff and teachers. So I really, really want us to have that inflationary increase to give some comfort to our board, and I do believe we can get this passed with some hard work by us and a campaign staff, group volunteers. So it sounds like at least 4 people on the board want to direct staff towards a resolution for putting this on the ballot with sunsetting, with inflationary adjustment. Any other comments or suggestions from the board?
Any other guidance needed?
Yeah, any other guidance, actually, yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
I just want to know how many years, if we're gonna add a sunset date, how many years will that be?
So we could look at our current parcel tax is 8 years. We could look at 9 years, and if we pass it in November, starting that following July or the fiscal cycle and go 9 years, it's really
Because it overlaps with the current.
correct.
Yeah, and we would start it, we would actually just say, we would start it earlier. The current one would stop, and it would stop at say 7 years. And we would go 9 years, or we go with a number they know, which is 8 years. I'm good with either. We do wonder about making it simple.
Yeah.
And going with 8 years.
I have one other question, which has just occurred to me.
Yeah,
The error is plus or minus basically 5%, right? Any comment on which way the error is going to go? Because if you have the expiration date and need more information, that comes to 13%, which you add to 54, that comes to exactly 67%. So which way the error goes is significant.
Indeed, yeah, I wish I did have that fortune teller. The only other point of reference is of course the baseline poll, which was a little bit higher. So I want to believe that we're somewhere between 67 and 71, depending on what's going on. But unfortunately.
Okay, so Jessica says that she's okay with it being above 7%. I heard her.
it's always fun having another Jessica.
Can I ask-
Like,
Can't say anything.
Can I ask one other question?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was any discussion that I missed, or is there any guidance needed about what the inflation measurement is going to be? Is that just going to be a flat number? Is that going to try to be based on something that doesn't come from us?
So we're still working with our attorney, looking at surrounding districts, kind of collecting some information. So we will get back to you with that info.
Okay.
Any other questions or guidance? It should be fun on August, where we're really getting a little more of the information that we don't have currently. Anyway, so I think you have your direction. Anything else needed?
Not at this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
down and presenting this to us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here in person.
Yes.
Sure, we love it down here.
This was a lot of work. Thank you so much.
Yes.
See you in 2-ish weeks.
Yes. Yeah. Right, all right. Moving along to approval of agreement incorporating Omnia contract for installation of playground systems and services with Play and Park Structures, Inc. Eric.
Yes, so on June twelfth, we brought a resolution to the board to be able to procure playground equipment through this specialized piggyback contract through Omnia. And it's a joint powers authority, and it's a great program. It saves the district several over almost $200,000 in discounts. There is a district in Texas that actually bid this project out, and so that's how we're allowed to follow this procurement method. So by doing the resolution in June, we're now able to get into a contract with Omnia. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve this contract for $385,128.41. It will be a multi-funded project, meaning that we will use a small amount of bond funds, some one-time discretionary block grant funds, some lease revenue that's generated from 10 site. Our special ed, we try not to use a lot of the capital outlay funds, but we can use some capital outlay funds for special ed because there's some preschool intervention funds that can be used to pay for staff, and that will free up some of those dollars for capital outlay. And then we also asked the Covington PTA if they could help contribute. They didn't make a full commitment because they're not meeting until the fall. But Wade, before he left, principal had a good talking with them and asked them if that's something they would consider, and they will consider that as a potential funding source when they meet again, their first meeting in the fall. So it'll be a multi-funded project. So tonight we're asking the board to approve this Omnia contract. It's a great project. Jennifer Kiker and Christina Murad have done a lot of heavy lifting to help get this vendor in place. They've done a lot of inclusive playgrounds. And so it's going to be ADA accessible for special needs students, which we think is really important. And it's going to really help a lot of kids to feel part of the school community. And we think it's a great project for the district for Covington.
Great. I have one quick clarifying question. When would this project start if we approve it?
So we would sign the contract tomorrow, send it off to the vendor. We did let them know ahead of time that they'd begin a signed contract, and we think it's 4 to 8 weeks to get the items here, and then several weeks of installation. So we're hoping by sometime in the fall, October around, to have it completed by then, we hope.
So the play structure area would be off limits.
Yes,
right
the
now.
good
That
news-
is where I'm going. with
Yes,
this.
and but the good news is Covington has 2 playgrounds.
Yes.
And so that will be helpful. We'll make sure that the playground, this company has done a lot of work in schools. They're very used to doing work around active school sites. So we'll be very careful with fencing and making sure the area is safe for students.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments on this agenda item?
I just love that we're putting in an inclusive playground. And will the community have access to it after school hours?
Yes.
And it becomes a nice community asset.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the one, well, I mean, there's several great things about our campuses, but one of the great things is that it is the community resource after hours. And yes, this is amazing to have this update to those play structures. I don't love that it's happening during the school year, because it's actually the older kids playground than is what is used, and it's for taller kids. But I'm cool with it. It is what it is. Any other comments? Brian, any comments?
Nope, nothing for me.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the agreement incorporating Omnia contract for installation of playground systems and services with Plains Park Structures?
I will second.
All in, roll call vote. Steve,
Aye.
Brian,
Yes.
Vladimir,
Yes.
Shelley.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0. Meeting is adjourned. Like special meetings. There was no closed session.